I recently had an opportunity to visit with my friends Summer and Saunders of Flock Finger Lakes, and we took a nice long walk around their beautiful property, specifically talking about water and water management. And they filmed the whole wander and made a really beautiful video. I'm going to link to that right here. A really great chance to get to know what they're up to. Check that out and subscribe to their channel if you're interested. And I took a snippet of that where I was specifically showing them some ideas around water management at a human scale, dealing with water bars to redirect water off of a driveway, and to think about ways to manage water in the landscape. And they sent that snippet along to me. I edited it a little bit and would like to share that with you now. There's a couple little bops here or there where the audio's a little tough, but overall it is a really great video if you're interested in that sort of subject. So check it out. Here we go.
So what's really happening is that the water is not coming from the pond area. It is coming from this driveway here.
Yeah.
And then it's making its way through here, and then it's piling up right in front of the barn there. And then what it does, it makes its way to the right side of the gate, and then it goes to the ditch behind it near the road.
Right.
But right now it just pulls up here in front of the barn.
Yep. Yeah, it's got very little, there's pretty much no option there.
Yeah. And some of it makes its way to the right of it.
Yeah, but that's an ask to go from that low ice point to either past the pine into the fence is a good foot to 2 feet of lift or cut, and then the same thing in this direction. So that's where you should build your pond next to you.
That's why I said we should do a moat, like, and just have the whole thing around the barn, and it's just floating in a moat.
Find some northern hardy alligators, and that, there we go. I'm glad we talked.
The castle bridge.
So I think it comes to the same. So the same like pathway of questions is like, is this about aesthetics or is this about reality? It's like, truly, this is about the reality. The other one is too, but this one's like, okay, you have a situation that is pretty erosive to the health of that infrastructure. There's probably ice issues on the road. There's lots of layers of reason why refining and intervening makes sense. So then it's, okay, where is the water coming into the system? And we should look probably for a bit at the road itself, like probably either some sort of water bar or a series of gentle water bars that ask the flow that's on the road surface itself a little bit more assertively, like, yo, come over here, and get to that weird little ditch. Because that's a lot coming in. So should we look at that first?
Yeah,
Let's spend just a few minutes. Is that a term you're familiar with?
The water bar? No.
Hopefully I'm using the right term. That's a
more
ditch.
Like a ditch.
Yeah, and that's nice. That's doing some work. But this is what I'm looking at. This is clearly, so this is actually not, it might not be too big a deal.
So you see it's coming down the road now, so you get to see where it goes.
And this is some work you can chip away at. So
it may be just around this gate where we start to direct it here. Yep. Like right here.
Yeah. Instead of using brute force to like force it's like taking the energy that's coming in and redirecting it with a little bit of assertiveness, but nothing to, and if need be, repeating the action to get it to go. Anyway, without using a weird analogy, it's straightforward. You've got water that's coming through this channel. Yeah. Really, really clearly, this is aggravating that problem down there. Right. And then also is aggravating, ultimately, you get like 2 inches of rain out of nowhere and you'll start losing this road really easily. Yeah. So what you can do is, and again, this is shovel work, so it's really straightforward. Rather than a single monolithic aggressive dig in and make this rut to make sure every drop of water gets in over here. You do it a few times over and over again, where literally you would take a shovel. We could grab shovels and actually just do this if you want, and you could see the effect. But we would take the shovel and shave a shovel's width just down, let's say, 2 inches. And all of this material So basically you would cut 2 inches down, shave, until we're into the grass, until we're actually into this lull.
Yeah.
So the water's now here. All of the cut that comes from that work is gently deposited in the recess. And we're doing it in a subtle enough way that when you're driving on this, you'd feel it in the tires, but it wouldn't be like ba-boom, ba-boom,
Yeah.
ba-boom. It would just be a little bit. You would do it once, you would come up the line, do it again. Maybe it's you could start with every 30 feet and see what that does. And then split it to every 15 feet.
It's almost like speed bumps, but water bumps instead.
Yep, the water bar.
Yeah.
And it's about, rather than like massive crater, huge tube, let's rent a machine, it's a half hour of shovel work. And each place where you're seeing it happen, the more you do it upslope, the less you'd have to deal with it downslope. But you could start at any place in the landscape. You'd get the highest leverage if you started with 1 or 2 right up where that little roadway is.
Exactly. It kind of looks like where it starts the most around where the roadway is.
And it would be about, so where you've got the gravel, that's where you're laying it back in to the system. When you get into your sod or your vegetative layer, then you're making sure that stays in this layer, right? So you're not bringing soil and sod into the driveway and vice versa from, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And it can be really subtle. So long as you see the water slowing there and coming here fully enough that it rests, it's soundly coming into this track, you're done with that one.
Yeah.
You can always come back and deepen it or adjust, refine it, and just repeat it. Because, that would actually, you've got this entire watershed missing the intended drainage spot.
I think maybe it had been like that at some point, because I noticed that there was a lot of wet-loving plants here that we pulled out and replanted around the pond.
Yep.
And so I think at one point this was kind of like the alluvial, runoff, basically.
Yeah. And it's, almost certainly it's like you think about plowing, that's going to erase that work.
Yes.
So it's something you'd have to repeat again.
Yeah.
And, maybe down the road there's a bigger lift and because, you're not too many years out from thinking about the road being looked at in a more thorough way.
Right.
But rather than like thousands and thousands of dollars of redoing it from scratch, just fix it now in a half hour so that at least until next winter, you've got a solution that is fully within your realm of adjusting. And then you can decide, yes, we do need a better road system. We need to redo drainage with machines. You might not need to get down there. I think if you did a little bit more further up before that road, because the road was cut in a way like that would actually help a bit more water start to send down that way.
Yeah.
I think the swales idea, which we can look at and explore, would be impactful and positive in the total as far as like helping with watershed health and giving opportunity for trees and recharging aquifers. It probably would not have significant influence on what's happening with this and that barn.
Right.
But they're all worth doing, I think.
So here you can see that there's a lot of water coming down from the driveway on this side. And then it's just kind of puddling up here. And there used to be a tree here. But what we're thinking of doing is just continuing this, take this stump out, and just continuing this trench down to on the left side of the road here.
Well, if
this just floods here.
What I'd put for there's a lot of lifting or a lot of diesel to get this stump out. I don't think you'd need this stump out to have positive effect.
You could just go next to it, you think?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I think you've got your lull here and then there's diffuse water happening. You can decide, so naturally it's kind of splitting because of machine track stuff and then reconvening. I think you could pretty easily ask the water, you could decide, it probably would be a little bit safer for the road health to go a little further over if it's a split decision. And I would take this section. And so a question like, is this meant to be hugel mounds in the future?
Yeah, exactly. That's just there to stay.
Okay. So then you could be, everything you're digging by hand from here can be flipped upside down to add a soil layer to your hugel mound. So you're managing and harvesting a valuable product that's proximal. And so you would dig through here, and this you can, again, we could do today, definitely after the next thaw. But I would be cutting, so if it were me, I would cut something out, you know, again, not 2 feet deep, but maybe just a foot deep or so, taking all of this really valuable material and getting it up and on that bed. And then when you get to right around here, there's an opportunity to actually dig a little bit more significantly, and again, all onto there. So it's completely a cut and fill, and have this act as a silt trap. And then, so in other words, like maybe it's a 6 foot diameter, maybe it goes down a full foot. Nothing crazy, but it's a nice vernal pool. Maybe it's wider if that's what you want. Maybe there's a second one near it. There's lots of opportunity for that. And then you can decide, once you've cut that out, where do you want it to flow from there? And seems like it's not unreasonable to ask it to kind of consolidate a little. So now we're back to shaving and sending over to the beds and get it just to the other side. Once it's over here, is it an issue?
No, there it doesn't matter.
So then I think that would get you.
So instead of sending it to the right of that, you would say you could even just send it to the left.
I would personally prefer to send it a little more this way for a few reasons. One,
it feeds that whole area, right?
It adds more moisture to the underside of a woody perennial system that you can set. Like it basically waters the hugel mound from below.
Yeah.
So it sends it to somewhere that would find value in it, and it keeps it a little further away from the watershed management that is the side of the road that is fragile inherently anyway. And it's like the more we can suggest that the water leaves the road surface and actually goes further is generally better for the overall picture.
So yeah, we have the option to send it right there, and then it will feed that hugel mound there from the back, and then it slowly seeps through that to the road, but then it doesn't just drain out immediately.
Yep. Right, and if there's like a powerful rain or a really fast thaw out of nowhere, there'd be lots of water in here for a week or 2 weeks. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right, it's not hurting the building, it's not in the way of the road, it can take its time, and again, it comes back to that spirit of like the slow it, spread it, and sink it vibe, which is what we want for all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's an opportunity to observe and interact. So like you dig out a little pond, and you notice salamanders or frogs, or you see creatures, and then you see, okay, it actually dries up faster than we like. Maybe you widen and deepen it. But this is already beginning the work of acting as a silt trap. So this is this winter's soil losses from upslope, right? And so seeing that, and the reason for that is it's accelerating in, and then it kind of hits an inflection point. It loses its energy, so the material in suspension gets dropped out, and so we can just we can intensify that by like making it a larger silt trap.
Right,
and
so this is what's this is the silt here flowing.
Yeah, this is
and it's taking out all the soil, and if you do a little pond here, that means that you're trapping the soil on the land, and only the water will leave.
Yep, you're leaving a lot more time for the water when it's in a turbulent state to relax and drop what it's carrying, drop its load in the landscape. And each time you do, each one of those you do has a positive influence. So rather than like one huge silt trap right here, you could say, let's do a little bubble and another bubble that are 6 inches and 6 inches, and that's where we're getting most of our silt from. And then there'll be a little in here. But so it's like each time you repeat it, you get more positive effect.
It could be almost like pits and mounds in a way. Like, you know, how you see them in the forest and where the little froggies come in and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's the game. If there's like an overarching oversimplified way or a lens that I look through, it's like, how do we return the most physical complexity to a landscape before we die? Like, the most three-dimensionality as possible has the most positive impact for the most general things. And that's like the most wild, productive spaces. Everything gets smoothed out with machine work, but then like ultimately it'll go back to being complex and lumpy.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, especially where water is involved, it just has a lot more dynamism and microclimate and a lot more like overall resilience. But yeah, every scoop, just think the hugel mounds need so much more soil on top before they can be productive. So the more you harvest from it's worth each shovelful going like a few steps, I think. Yeah, you could cut. Okay, yeah, being down here now, I see it's less of a lift than from up above. It looked like it was more.
Yeah.
You'd have a hard time with this tree, but you could dig on this side of it. This is just like another one of those, as soon as there's a thaw. Am I seeing pack? Yeah. So water, the last time there was there was that like almost inch of rain last week that happened through here, right? You had the thaw and then it rained a whole bunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this tells me a lot. You see what's going on here? This was how the water flowed. So this took on a massive amount of water, enough to lift a whole bunch of chips from upslope. And yeah, you can see the packing pattern, right? So the grass is pushed over. Mm-hmm. So this means probably water was about, this high and rushing very fast down through here. It's a good reminder how herbaceous plants do good work in reducing erosion. So in this case, your soil particle was wood chip. So it was strong enough water flow to lift wood chips, and the grass was what acted as that sieve to hold it back in here. But depending on how much water, so in an ideal world, we don't dig a lot through here, we address it upslope. But you could also concurrently come to here and say, clearly this is where the water is wanting to flow through.
And just help it along there.
Yep. Again, we'll look at it, but it's not about stepping on the shovel and going
it's just
full.
Very gentle. Yeah.
It's a shave. And in fact, a lot of it is like taking these kinds of shovels and taking a file, like the one in your right hand is the kind of like the default tool I use for all this work.
So you just kind of gently shave it. Now, do you when it as it rains so you can see your work, or?
You don't have to do it while it's actively raining, because that's fun when it's like 80 degrees and it's a summer. This time of year, you can wait till it's done raining for sure. Or you can wait till, you're going to have probably like Monday through Thursday of next week will all be days that would be very appropriate for doing this kind of work. And you could take a flat file and shave on the inside here, like almost flat to the shovel, the leading, like the center half or third. If it doesn't have to be like a razor blade, but if it's flattened out here and shaved, when you get into sod layer, soil, it just gets under it a lot smoother. It's just a lot easier to work with. But this might be too frozen, but you can see like, yeah, see that's like, if it was sharper, it would cut that a little bit. And this, I can share the cheesy ergonomics. Like if you do enough of this, it really matters. If you lift like this, you're using your arms and your back. And so I use my leg in front and I shave. And then I use this as my fulcrum and I can just do that. So my back hasn't moved at all. And it lets me like slice and pry and then flip that over. And so you can kind of just get, and this is a way to also acknowledge this tree and not necessarily be slamming on the roots. Like if you hit a root, you can ask, can I go a different pathway here? And so you pry a little and you go from there, right? And that might be as far as you need to take it.
I think that will help a lot with channeling that water into the right direction.
And then we want to say again, like, okay, yes, we're getting this water to move along. That's all well and good. But where do we say, hey, we don't want to lose all the soil or all the wood chips. So maybe it's comes around this corner and we're on our way now to getting down the slope. What do we do here? Maybe now we transition to a little bit of a cut and we say, you know, we want the water to keep moving, but we're going to do a little micro silt trap right here.
So how big would you go? What's the smallest size you would go with that?
Right that.
That's the smallest size. And then so the water will continue what direction? I guess you could then...
It's probably going to come through here.
Yeah.
Or it's going to come, yeah, it's going to come through here. But remember, our intention with this is to get the water to move away from infrastructure or pathways that we need, but not to say to it, get out of here as fast as possible. It's just keep moving.
Because you'll take all the soil of the land with it.
Yep.
If you rush it out.
Yep. All the annual crop farming around us plays the game of the hyper-aggressive, all of you drops of water, get out of here as fast as possible.
Heavy tile drainage.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why we see every waterway look like thick chocolate milk after a quarter inch of rain.
Yeah.
Like small rain events are destructive now.
Yeah.
And Cayuga Lake is just like filling with silt, right? Because like there are no silt traps, because everything is about like, get it out of here, get it out of here. So we're saying, hey, come on, you can keep moving and drop your briefcase, drop your packages here. Okay, you can keep moving. And I wouldn't cut anymore now. I'd see what this looks like after it thaws a bit. Just come down with a shovel.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like 3 minutes or 10 minutes on a given issue at a time. And then you observe and interact. Each iteration of that is a benefit. So I personally wouldn't take that further.
Yeah, let's see what it does.
Yep. It'll be better.
We can observe it after the big melt after Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Saturday night, it's like 8 inches of snow. Then it'll be 15 degrees.
Yeah.
Then spring, question mark, maybe. But there's no rush. It's like you're setting in this infrastructure. And then the nice layer is, you know, okay, it's starting to function. We like the feel. Maybe we don't need to take it any further. What does it look like now that we've deposited richer soil right here? Maybe this is where we throw a little bit of nice perennial seed. Mm-hmm. Maybe we have a currant cutting left over. We'll stick that in. And you start associating plantings next to the waterway so that each time in the future when you harvest a nice shovel full of silt that dropped into here, you can put it as a mulch or as a feed for a plant that's nearby. Mm-hmm. And then you're creating little ecosystems around it. And as long as you have this, you're good for a lifetime in managing it.
Should we finish that driveway section?
Yeah,
Just
let's
to
do that.
Wrap up how that works?
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's a lot happening here. Like this is again, so this is getting into the realm of like pretty tough what happened in this spot. Like clearly that rain was really aggressive moving through here.
So yeah, you really want to finish your trench before it rains.
And it cut, like it eroded a fair bit of that bank too.
Yeah.
So what I would try to do is avoid having an ideal scenario, and especially with the realities of this scene, I would avoid cutting through this road because it feels fragile already, and say, again, how do we, and I think I saw some spots where we could ask the water to not come through here in the first place, but all right, whatever water did get through here, can it be a game of, is this planted?
No.
Okay, so, you know, upslope, maybe it follows the contour of the road, is we say like, all right, let's shave a little and deposit it downslope. Hopefully I'm not in the actual road.
There's no real.
This road has not been defined yet. Really.
It's not real. It's not a real road.
So
it was
kinda
just a
comes
hill
out.
before.
It kind of starts here on this bank.
Yeah.
On this tree, so.
But yeah, we get your gist of like just gently.
Yeah, so you would send it that way.
Slurping it through here.
We see it. It's already.
Yeah, keep going.
This water is now going this way.
Right.
And so you can come at it from either side now, and you can say, it's when you actively see the flow that you can make these changes.
if a channel is quite shallow, will it also act as a silt trap?
Yeah, yep. Especially when you make turns. When there's turns, that really has a huge influence, right? So now we're seeing that the water does come this way, some of it. I know not all of it because clearly there's water coming this way from this same little micro space. So we can say, well, let's grab a little more of that upland watershed. This is another one where you can use your body, like you can put the tool into your hip and your body moving forward is what makes the cut. It's really weird looking, the way I'm doing this, right? But if you notice my lower back is not, I'm not doing the work with my lower back, and that's the weakest part of my body.
What's that Olympic sport where you're on ice and you push the...
Curling.
Curling. It looks like curling.
Yep. Imagine if they had Olympic sports for like tree planting and ditch digging, like soil healing.
Isn't that like the
bronze.
lumberman like challenge though? It feels a little bit like that.
So that's starting, you know, now we've got something that's like a catch, and then because there's so much wood chip, it's very porous, which is fine. Like a lot's leaking through right here. So then we would need to figure out, you know, now I'm seeing from up watershed, it's entering into here. It is coming this way. We just need to see that it's aiming in the direction. Not that it's rushing in the direction, but that it's going, right? And then as soon as it's going, you're done. You go to the next spot. And we might find that you have to like go a little bit deeper in some spots because the elevation is actually increasing. But here, if I scrape it, yep, it's doing the right thing. So I can go to the next spot.
You can see we have all that good clay here.
It is a clayey time.
Yeah.
But that combo of mineral-rich clay with strata of wood chips, that's a ridiculous planting bed. Maybe not this spring, but in the fall. But certainly you can throw some cover crop or like, you know.
Yeah, it would be quite nice to have a bit of a berm on the side of the road where you can plant some stuff in, and that defines kind of where the road is, the road line. You know?
Yeah.
And it would take care of all the water issues that will ever come down that road.
Yep. And it can be, and you know, it could be like kale and watermelon radish and spinach and that kind of stuff for now. Or, you know, zinnias and like, you know, calendula and flowers. And then in the fall, it can be, maybe there's some woody shrubs. Maybe that's a little too much for such a small roadway. So then it's like, cool, more lobelia and elecampane and like water appreciating herbaceous.
Well, I like that because also the road won't be so like, ooh, this is a road. You know what I mean? It's a much more gentle glide from like habitat to an access point.
Right, it's a space for birds and creatures to also want to hang out.
Yeah.
As they're moving through. So yeah, and you know, you can see here's where a lot of water, so this is definitely a spot. And you know, I wouldn't take any material from the road to do this because we want that to stay as ridged as possible. If anything, you take a little more from up top to make your berm. But chances are, if we do some other work, we'll see some relatively still pooling here, and then the problem will continue on because until we cut that pool, we don't know. So if the rate of flow is very slow and the feedback, you're not getting fast enough feedback, a trick is to plan to do 3 spots in a day where you do a bit in one area and then you go somewhere else, work on that other bit so that water can aggregate. So as you make cuts, you get more information. It's like you're refilling the water level, so to speak, so you can see it faster.
Yeah.
But already I can see clearly water's coming back into this, so we cut more. But just try to avoid the temptation of this kind of move.
Right.
Where you're like, it's just too much. It's hard on your body. It's gonna burn you out and not feel good. And it makes for like a much harder to manage scenario. So now it's getting a little more sluggish in coming this way, so it'll have to go a little lower. we don't have to spend, if you feel like you got it, and really it's just like 5 minutes and you got it.
I think I gotta keep doing this.
It's fun, you're gonna love it. And then when that thaw happens, so this is when you're in the realm of devastation. The scale of it right now is not bad, but imagine if we were actually looking at drone footage of like a 50-acre space here. That's what we see all the time. And that's water being too aggressive. And there's your fertility and also all this fragility that's happened here. So like once that's resolved, the next step is to swale this berm if you don't need to have physical access all the time and plant it out.
Yeah, we don't need that. We could plant this easily.
So
shield it.
So you would put a couple swales here? How many you think?
2.
2, yeah.
Or 3,
I also thought
It's a little wider here, so
we
it's
could
like
probably run a channel here that goes that way so that it doesn't just fall into that direction. Whatever water happens to come from here could be sent straight down there. Like, in a way, this is also a berm that could have some swales.
Yep, you could have a berm, swale in there. You could, so you're at there's like multiple water, they're micro watersheds, but it's all watersheds. I mean, like in your hand with a lump of soil, there's watershed, right? It's like, it's just all scaled. You could say, all right, let's have water go around here and follow along. But since we're already dealing with like a challenging scene down in here, if you could get so there's a swale as a concept is, absolutely perfectly on contour. Every drop of water is equally distributed along it. That doesn't help us in these scenarios because we're not just trying to deal with excess, we're dealing with excess water. We're not dealing with like farming in the hills of Arizona. It's like we need to have excess. So a swale in this landscape needs to always be pitched the tiniest bit in the direction of not the if, but when it is overflowing, where does it overflow? And so you could think of a swale that comes down along here that is still chasing water out to daylight on that end, if that's reasonable. And this might be a laser level or an A-frame game because you've got the infrastructure here and you want to get it right. But like, I could imagine that a trench or a cut, just like we were doing on the other side there, on this side of the driveway where each slice is deposited down slope, would trend towards shedding water to that side. And in an ideal world, water on that side is better than water in the shaded lull of this side of the structure. So maybe it is a swale here, but more ditch, like 2% or 4% grade. Like it's aiming to that cut we started down there. And here it's a little more gentle. It's about equalizing the water, but still saying like, yep, you got to go that way when you're full. This is almost a swale-ish.
right.
But in the spirit of a ditch, but not a ditch, a ditch.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've like overly used that word ask with all this, but I think it's an appropriate language lens to apply. Like you're asking, it will oblige, but you're not telling. It's like, come on, and then it'll go that way. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, and so now like there's the dam, and that needs more work, but we'll just leave that.
I like how incremental of approaches they are. They're not like, like you said, they're not forcing it into something, but you could just incrementally look at how it reacts, and then if you want to come out the next day later and do a little bit more work, if it needs it, you could do that.
Yep. Yep.
More minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then when it feels like it's really stable and doing its thing, then you can start really adding the plant layer. And then you can still dig and just use that as mulch and fertility for the plant layer.
You're giving me more reasons to plant, Sean.
Yeah, always. To dig
More
and plant.
Thank you, Sean. That's great.
But I think that's the key to all this is it really, all of this lives in human scale tools you already have and measurement systems you have inside your body already. Then it's like, it feels like it could actually be accessible and it's applicable at any scale too. I mean, clearly 100 acres, no, but within reason, and even like an hour of shovel work up here or half hour may have huge effect on hydrology in like 3 acres down slope down the road, right? Like a little bit goes a long way. Should we do the road?
Yeah, let's finish with the road.
Yeah.
It starts further up there, right?
Sure. You can go wherever. I mean, we're here, so you could start right here.
Might as well start here. So I'm gonna use my hip to dig.
It's weird ergonomics for sure.
And then I put it in here.
Exactly, yeah, because we're trying to encourage it to change its ways. And that's as deep as I would go.
Yeah, and there
but I
it
would
goes.
continue it, but you now have, so there's more water, but that might be mainly, that's something we acknowledge, but we come back to in a few. That might be just what was here working itself out.
Yeah.
So like you're not going to expect that to turn off instantly. It's not a valve.
True, but you could see it already wants to go that way.
It's coming this way, and it's also telling you where it would go without cutting. Yeah. I mean, that's like 2 or 3 minutes of digging that might
thousands of dollars of road repair.
Yeah. Well, and over the next week may change where 20,000 gallons of water flows. And you're aware of that this is going to be modified by snow clouds and that kind of thing. But if you have enough of them, they'll do their work.
Yeah.
And then you can decide, like, okay, this is something that we've like fixed enough with the shovel work that we're cool with it, just as our yearly work, or it really more thoroughly informs how you hire machine work to do the next iteration of the road.
Yeah, because I'm almost like, I'm learning what the water wants to do and where it wants to go. So even if we do this for a year or two, after that, we might want to repair this road properly. I know exactly where to focus on, where the water wants to really sit.
Yep.
So
where the problem spots are,
Yeah.
and how to like, yeah, right. This is really, really useful to bigger picture stuff. So that material, I would put the rest of that in this
Over
side
here,
now, because
right,
now you're
'cause
in
it's
like a
getting
different type of material.
man.
And then it might be, maybe it's something where like you come out with a matic,
Yeah,
for
break it
certain
up a little bit.
tight spots, yeah. But
It's good enough.
that would be what I would call an absolutely good enough water bar for there. And then you would just repeat that again at some interval.
Yeah, well, get close on it so you see the water.
I think my cord is hanging.
Are there other, because it sounds like I don't have my phone on me anyway, but like, are there other areas that felt pretty important to touch on?
Those were the 2 areas that were our biggest issues. The other question we had is whether we were kind of debating whether we should increase the size of this pond at all.
No.
No?
I mean, I wouldn't for now. You, of course, I don't know, of course you can, but you've got a lot of ponds and a lot of projects, and it seems like doing scale adjustments in earthworks and getting more trees in and getting seeds established, like all of that feels
first.
really high priority. And then you can, because large stroke infrastructure like that, you had a near historic drought in 2020 and then an incredibly wet year in 2021. What is 2022? You don't know. And so until you have like a 3-year average or a 5-year average, it seems like making decisions about huge landscape changes would be, there's really no way you could be well enough informed to know exactly what the right move is. So it'd be one thing if you had no water or you had no water holding, but you've got like a massive amount of water up there. All of your irrigation for anything you'd ever want to do could be with like 2 solar panels and a little pump, and then the rest is gravity. And you've got nice habitat that's happening around that pond, so don't.
Don't be greedy.
or maybe it's, you know, not like don't, but there's certainly no pressure to make it more complex or bigger than it is right now. And that's a sweet size. It's a good habitat size. And like maybe it fills in quite a bit. It's more boggy and marshy. That
already, and we get more salamanders and frogs in that one.
Yeah. So that they might be really sad if you change that.
Look how the water's moving in now.
Mm-hmm.
See where it wants to go? Here it goes, here it goes. It's direct feedback. And I'm trying to get it into that ditch over there.
Yeah.
Because then it avoids going down where Sean was digging earlier.
Yeah, then it's like crusty, icy enough that it's tough to dig. So then don't.
Yeah.
You know, just make a mental map to come back to that. That's the one little bop right here.
Yep.
There's a little speed bump. But, you know, it's close enough now.
Yeah, the road's really hard there.
So I wouldn't stress about it. That's just frozen. So, you know.
But look, it's already going.
It's already having influence. And I see already up there.
Yeah, look at that
way
right
less
now.
water coming down here.
You see the reflections get lower to the ground a little bit?
I mean, even just 2 would have a pretty darn significant influence.
Yeah.
I do see a fair bit coming through. You know, it's like when it thaws a little more, chase it out.
A bit more of a dam over here.
But that's the thing, when you've got the basic infrastructure, you might find after the snowplow comes through and then things thaw, that maybe there's a little pile here and there that like, okay, you get a shovel, but you might also find like...
Just doing that.
And it's fixed. Like, and you do that at each of your things and it does it. So then you don't have to necessarily bust out the tools every single time in the future when you've got the infrastructure laid in. You know, here I can see...
It's escaping there,
It's escaping because of this impoundment here, and then again here. But just so long as you have the lens in your eyes now to see that, you can just always know how to make the adjustments.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those things that actually lives profoundly in the realm of not overthinking. Like, everything you ever need to know about how water moves is revealed to you when water moves, right? It's like it's all there on the surface.
Instant feedback.
Yep. And so then you just feel it, and you're asking yourself what you're hoping to see happen, and then as you dig, you say, that's moving me towards what I'm hoping to see happen, or that is definitely not. Just make adjustments.
So there are a couple key concepts are, we want to make sure that water doesn't rush off the land because it takes all the soil with it. I mean, a prime example was when I dug that trench here and we had one of the heaviest rains, and like chocolate milk, it ran down into the ditch and it took all the soil with it. So if you can have the water be very gentle and make as much S-curves as possible through your land, that's better. And then plants along the way can pick it up. You're mentioning putting in little pools so that most of that soil can kind of settle. And then, that should do it.
That's it.